of the National Assembly and the Senate, the president said his administration inherited an economy in what he quoted as severe distress, but has since managed to stabilize it while laying firm foundations for long-term national transformation. And according to the president, when he assumed office, the country was grappling with a rapidly deteriorating economic environment. The Kenyan shilling was in sharp decline. Foreign exchange reserves had sunk to historic lows, and the debt serving was consuming more than half of all national revenues.
At a time like this, in 2022, Kenya was in distress. Inflation had soared almost to double digits. A fuel shortage threatened to paralyze our economy as oil marketers struggled to access dollars. The shilling was in free fall. Foreign reserves had hit historic lows. Debt service consumed more than half of our revenues. Confidence, both local and foreign, had waned. International analysts warned that it was no longer.
All right, at the same time, President William Ruto has revealed that more than 27 million Kenyans have already registered under the Social Health Insurance, that is SHA, program, emphasizing the government's commitment to ensuring that healthcare services are accessible and affordable for all. Now, speaking at Parliament buildings yesterday, President William Ruto told the nation that his milestone is crucial in achieving universal healthcare, allowing millions of Kenyans to receive quality medical services without facing heavy financial burdens. The president compared the SHA program with the former NHIF, describing SHA as a superior system because it benefits a larger number of citizens.
We have undertaken the most ambitious transformation of health systems since independence. Reforms rooted in equity, powered by innovation, and guided by a simple conviction that every Kenyan, wherever they live and whatever their means, deserves equal care. 27 million Kenyans are now registered in SHA, more than triple the number ever reached by the former NHIF. This is a demonstration that leaving no one behind was and is not a slogan. It is a promise on course to fulfillment. Additionally, more than 10,000 health facilities across the country have signed in to serve under this new system. But, honorable members, real health care begins long before patients reach a hospital.
All right, moving on, the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Mary Modoni, has urged Kenyans to maintain cleanliness in their homes, noting that many diseases can be prevented by observing proper hygiene practices. Speaking during a health budget meeting with officials from the ministry, Modoni stated that the government has put in place comprehensive strategies to ensure that quality healthcare services are accessible to all and remain affordable.
Of the primary healthcare fund is non-negotiable. Again, the emergency and chronic illness fund is equally non-negotiable, and it is done through the exchequer. It would be paramount that while you are working in Nairobi, nobody calls you from your village to tell you to give you money for registration at a facility. It should be free. It is free. And therefore, the government has a commitment to keep putting in money for primary health care fund.
Now let's talk matters education, and a union of scholars from North Samburu, Nyiro region has praised President William Ruto for granting the community a new administrative unit. The Nyiro sub-county, the residents of the Nyiro sub-county are now urging the government to speed up the process of publishing the sub-county in the Kenya Gazette and deploying government officials so that services can officially begin in the area. Now, according to the scholars, the establishment of the sub-county will significantly ease access to government services for the local population compared to the challenges they've experienced previously.
Express our sincere appreciation for your executive order designating Nyiro as a sub-county during your recent development visit to Samburu County. This decision represents a significant milestone for our community and upholds the principles of inclusivity and constitutional governance. After more than 30 years of Nyiro serving as a division with key administrative and social responsibilities, this elevation is both timely and transformative.
Kwa yale ambayo ametufanyia, sisi tukiwa watu wa Nyiro tunafurahia sana kwa yale ambayo ametutendea. Na sisi tunasema pia tukiwa kama wamama, hiyo ni maendeleo ingine pia sisi tumeachieve kutoka kwa president wetu.
Huduma kama ya kipande watu wataweza kupata kwa urahisi, watu hata kuandikwa kazi. Kwa sababu siku hizi kazi hata inaandikwa kwa sub county. Itaweza pia kusaidia wananchi huko waweze kuandikwa kazi. Watu wengi vijana huko wako katika hali ya mambo ambayo haitufurahishi sisi kama wazazi, kwa sababu hawezi kufika Baragoi ili waweze kuandikwa.
Kaunti ya Nyiro iwe gazetted, na maombi yetu ambayo sasa tunajua haitakuwa na kazi yoyote ambayo inaweza fanyika bila kufanywa kisheria ya gazettement. Na maombi yetu kama professionals ifanywe kwa haraka na tutafurahia.
This is a great initiative kwa sababu I'm very sure developments zitakuwa juu sana huko side yetu ya South ama Nyiro kwa ujumla, na tunaomba tu make ikuwe gazetted.
Right, moving on, a strong warning has been issued by the security minister, or rather the interior minister, that is Kipchumba Murkomen, to residents of the Marakwet East constituency, that is in Elgeyo Marakwet County, against participating in acts of female genital mutilation, that is FGM. Now speaking at Kapchebua, Murkomen noted that the security agencies in the area have agreed to on measures to tackle FGM cases and have warned elders against protecting those who carry out the harmful practice. He stressed that anyone found involved will face strict legal action.
Mambo ya FGM, it is only in Marakwet East. So, County Commissioner yuko hapa. We have our new Deputy County Commissioner ambaye ni DC wetu wa Marakwet East amekuja. Tunataka nichukue nafasi kama mjumbe wa area nikukaribishe. Na waziri, sababu sasa yeye is the Minister of Interior na anaelewa na anatoka sehemu hii. Hatutaki kusikia maneno ya FGM kwa Marakwet East. Na waziri, ule mtu akipatikana ama mama akipatikana hapa na maneno ya FGM, hata kama ni shangazi yako, sababu mimi na wewe tuko na relatives hapa, waambia County Commissioner awaweke cell wote. Maneno ya FGM kuna sheria.
Hakuna FGM itaendelea hapa. Hakuna kukata msichana yoyote kwa Embobuti na kwa Marakwet East. Disemba inakuja, mama mwenye anashika kisu na mzazi mwenye anashika mtoto yake kupeleka chondoni msichana ati anaenda kukatwa, huyo mama atashikwa, ule mama anakata yeye atashikwa na ataenda kupelekwa kotini na tupeleke yeye cell huko na tupeleke jela, ataenda kukula maharagwe akijifunza tabia mzuri.
Now, as the world observes Universal Children's Day, Gender, Culture and Children's Services, Minister Hannah Cheptumo has proposed legal reforms to ensure that perpetrators of child abuse face life imprisonment. Now, speaking at the official opening of the Specialized Children's Court established in collaboration with a non-governmental organization in Kilifi Town, Minister Cheptumo noted that most cases of child abuse are committed by individuals close to the victims within their communities. She highlighted that many cases fail due to insufficient evidence, often resulting from inadequate environments for collecting testimonies. Cheptumo emphasized that the government and various stakeholders need to strengthen collaboration to implement initiatives that will improve service delivery for children and protect their rights.
These children to live in a safe home, where in the evening when they come after school, they feel confident to come home. Not to come home and meet an uncle who is a perpetrator, who is being kept by the father and the mother, thinking he's a relative. Kumbe nikamukora hapo, iwonsa ile wazazi wameenda kazi, ananyemelea watoto. Huyo ni mtu tunasema ashindwe, justice Mugure Tande, funga yeye, and we may even need to amend the laws to ensure that they stay in court, they stay in cells for the rest of their lives.
These empty rooms that were once court cells were transformed into a sanctuary, a warm and colorful environment where a child can hold a toy, sit comfortably and speak their truth with courage.
This courtroom is a testament to what is possible when government, civil society and community works together with one shared purpose, which is to protect the future of our children and to restore hope and dignity. Kwa watoto wote wa Kilifi, this place is for you. May you always remember as you walk in here that your story is honored, that healing is for you, and that hope can be restored.
We have all the three arms of government ziko hapa. Sote pamoja tushikane, multi-sectorial approach, tuhakikishe ya kwamba hawa watoto wamelindwa, hawa watoto wamependwa na maelekezo.
Alright, now in a show of commitment and determination for change, DCP party leader Rigathi Gachagua made a surprise visit to the Mlachake Muguka market, demonstrating his strategy to rally voters behind Newton Kariuki, popularly known as Karish, for the upcoming Mbeere North parliamentary seat. Now, during his morning tour that was yesterday, the former deputy president visited the villages of Munandari and Witwa in Ndawar ward, engaging with residents and endorsing his preferred candidate. His discussions, Gachagua emphasized that after listening to the community and understanding the challenges facing the Muguka trade, it was clear that Mbeere North needs a selfless representative, someone capable of defending the interest of local produce markets and ensure fair prices.
Tunahitaji mbunge ya upinzani kwa sababu mbunge wa serikali hawezi tetea kasi, ndio? Ndio. Umeona huyu mkoje anang'ang'ana peke yake, si ndio? Mkiongeza Karish wakuu wawili hapa Embu ati bwana wetu igwo mbogo ikogo mbogo kiratane ana mbogo ya pesa ni soprano ya ukura
Now, religious leaders and other stakeholders from Garissa County have expressed concern over the high levels of drug abuse among youth or the young people in the area, especially during the long holiday period. Now, speaking at a meeting organized to discuss the challenges posed by drug misuse, the leaders cited insecurity in some villages, poor parental guidance and negligence by police officers in apprehending drug offenders as major contributing factors. They called on the government to work closely with the residents to eradicate the growing menace and protect the youth from its harmful effects. All right, moving on, long-distance drivers using the Kisumu-Busia highway as well as the Eldoret route to Malaba have raised concerns over the deteriorating security along these roads. Drivers reported frequent theft incidences while waiting in queues to clear the cargo at the border. Speaking at a truck queue in Busia town, they urged the government to find a lasting solution to the persistent traffic congestion and security risks at the Kenya-Uganda border. Stakeholders in the Busia business sector have also called on the government to complete the construction of the truck parking facilities at Mundika near Busia to ease congestion and enhance border operations.
Kwa hii barabara ni jam kama leo tumefika hapa, nimetoka Kisumu asubuhi. Tunaweza kukaa kwa jam kuanzia asubuhi mpaka jioni, hata mpaka saa zingine usiku. Wezi ndio tena wanatuibia dipstick za kupima mafuta. Hii waya ya ABS wanakata kwa hizi magari, sijui wanapeleka wapi.
Overlapping inakuaga, lakini inategemea. Hiyo most of the time inategemea matengi zina overlap, zingine zinavalabishwa na polisi. Huwezi toka peke yako bila kuwa na polisi.
Tunashirikiana na serikali na county government, tunataka watengeneze trailer park. Trailer park ndio tunataka watengeneze vizuri. Kwa hivyo sasa hii mlolongo ya magari yote watakuwa wana park, alafu tuwe na hapo kwa trailer park hapo tutakuwa wametengenezwa abolition block vizuri, wale ambao wanaweza kuoga na wana park. Sasa ile clearing inafanyika at once, sasa watu wanapita kwa njia mzuri.
Now, the Anti-Doping Agency of Kenya that is ADAC, has urged athletes to exercise caution when using over-the-counter drugs that are not prescribed by a medical professional. ADAC noted that some products are used without knowledge of their potential risks, which could endanger athletes' careers. Now, the agency encouraged all athletes to consult registered doctors and follow established health and sport guidelines to safeguard their professional future in athletics.
Hapa sababu ya mafunzo tukiwa target hawa wa football na pia tunazingatia hata wale wa basketball, hata wale wa volleyball, na in the course of this week pia tutaweza kuongelesha wana coaches wao ndiposa hao mwanamchezo huyu aweze kuwa amelindwa vizuri na ameangaliwa vizuri, ndiposa asiende kuingika katika hali ya kutumia dawa ambazo zimekataliwa. Pia tunataka kuwahamisha kwamba ni kawaida kwa mwanamchezo yote kuchukuliwa sample za doping control. Kwa hivyo wasiwe na wasiwasi, wasiogope, wasiwe na hali ya kukatama, kukimbia wanapoona wale watu wa anti-doping, lakini wajue kwamba ni katika hali ya michezo kwamba wataweza kutestiwa at any time.
Now, Nyeri High Court has ruled that the Mutitu Water Self-Help Group is the rightful owner and manager of the Mutitu Water Project, and the ending a 15-long land dispute over one of the region's key water distribution systems. Now, in his judgment, Justice Dennis Magare noted that the project was unlawfully taken in 2010 by the Mutitu Water and Sanitation Company, that is MWASCO, despite being initiated, built and expanded by local residents through their personal contributions and volunteer efforts. The judge ordered MWASCO to immediately hand over management and operations of the project to the community group that originally established it.
Mutitu Water Project Self-Help Group is a legitimate group to run Mutitu Water. In order to cancel the alleged defunct, I put it in a quote, is dismissed. A prayer for general damages lacks merit and is dismissed. Awarded costs to the self-help group and issued a permanent injunction against Mutitu Water and Company and the agents from dealing with, in any manner whatsoever, with Mutitu Water Project by the legitimate officials of Mutitu Water Self-Help Group.
Kesi imefika tamati na tumekuwa na ushindi mkubwa. Ushindi mwenye umeonyesha kwa ukubwa kweli mwenye maji ni nani, na mwenye maji ni mkaaji wa Nailutia wa Mugonda na memba wa Mutitu Self-Help Group yenye imekata kaunti 3. Imekata Nyandarua, imekata Laikipia na iko hapa Nyeri. Kwa hivyo sasa hii ni dhihirisho kubwa kuwa mwananchi wa kawaida ako na sauti kwa hii.
All right, it is exactly 27 minutes past the top of the hour. We're taking a short break here on The Drift, but we'll be back in just a bit. All right, welcome back to the program. Just in case you are joining us, this is The Drift Morning Live, the newspapers part of it. Now, today I'm having the Daily Nation and the Standard newspaper dated today, the 21st day of November 2025. Now, let's take a look on the Daily Nation. What the Daily Nation has to share, rather to say, this particular morning as far as the governance of this country is concerned. I beg your pardon for that. You know, it's consuming a lot of sugar. All right. Now, top story on the Daily Nation says Ruto's roadmap to what it is quoted as Singapore. And there is a picture there of the head of state who appeared yesterday in Parliament buildings to have the State of the Nation address, which is actually conducted, or rather, which this being the third State of the Nation address. All right. Now, a bullish President William Ruto yesterday outlined his grand vision for the country's belated transformation into a first world nation, but for which Kenyans must pay a hefty price, 5 trillion Kenya shillings to actualize. Casting the image of a man on a mission, he highlighted how he will deliver what he termed as Singapore. Amid criticism, his plan is not of touch and devoid of reality. Is he too ambitious? Will he surmount the challenges? What do you think of that? Ruto recently has been saying that even the first world countries, began somewhere, and he wants to make Kenya, to move Kenya from the third world country to a first world country, right? Tell me your thoughts. Of course, keeping in mind, rather bearing in mind the current situation in this country, the cost of living and whatnot, and everything that is happening across the country. Now, economic and agriculture, President William Ruto said in that particular matter, said and I quote, we must turn around our economy from a net importer to a net exporter of products, goods and services, the most urgent being imports of agricultural food productions that cost us 500 billion Kenya shillings every year. As I mentioned earlier, we have already made interventions to reduce imports of maize, sugar, edible oil, rice and wheat, but our efforts are undermined by the natural limits of rain-fed agriculture. Now, in matters education, which has, there has been a crisis in the education sector, and the president said in matters that particular ministry said we have increased the education budget from 490 billion Kenya shillings in 2021 to 700 billion Kenya shillings this year, which has facilitated better infrastructure in our education system, more teachers and trainers, and enhanced funding for our colleges and universities. I have organized government departments to establish a dedicated state department for science, research and innovation to support the urgent need to scale up STEM courses. Now, on matters energy, which also has, been a story making headlines recently, where the head of state actually said that our source of power actually may not be able to sustain all of us in the country, and he said there may be need, to cut power during a certain time in the day in order to accommodate every region in the country. Those were his words recently, a few months ago. Now, let's take a look on what he had to say in matters energy. He said, and I quote, to modernize our country, leverage technology to create new opportunities to turn our agriculture and national resources into products, manufacturing in industrialization, consume many megawatts of energy. As a result, we have to generate an additional 10,000 megawatts in the next 7 years, so as to move our country to the next level and undertake the transition necessary for our growth. Now, matters transport and logistics, the head of state said, as the region's economic and diplomatic hub, home to the UN's largest office in the global south and the 6th largest economy in Africa, Kenya must maintain world-class seaports, airports, highways, and digital corridors to scale up for our transport and logistics program. The Ministry of Roads and Transport has already mapped out a comprehensive network of 2,500 highways for dualing and 228,000 kilometers of roads to be tarmacked. Those are the words of, the head of state in regards to, certain dockets in the government. That was economy and agriculture, education, energy, transport and logistics, and of course goes on and on. Key sectors in the country, including health. Now, the president also said, and I quote, honorable members, estimates indicate that achieving these 4 priorities will require at least 5 trillion Kenya shillings. This is undeniably a large sum. Some may see it as unrealistic, even audacious for a country like ours. All right. I don't know what's your take on, those 4 sectors consuming at least 5 trillion Kenya shillings. Right? That's a story on page 2 all the way to 10 State of the Nation address that was made yesterday in the Parliament buildings by the head of state, that is President William Ruto. Right, moving on, witnesses recount horror in school fire tragedy, and villagers and school workers tried desperately to put out a fire that broke out at Hillside Academy in Russia in Nyeri County on the night of September 5th last year. But all their efforts were in vain as the inferno led to the death of 21 boys. An inquest had yesterday. That's on page 12 in Matters Corridors of Justice. And of course, you remember that the inferno that was in Nyeri County in Russia Academy, Hillside in Russia, that claimed, the lives of the 21 students. And of course, the matter is actually in court to know whether the accident was actually an accident or was it a foul play. All right, that's a story in court, and that's a story also on page 12 on the Daily Nation. Now on matters sports, PSG's Hakimi named African's footballer of the year. That's on the last page, page 35 of the Daily Nation. Now let's take a look on what's making headlines on the Standard newspaper this morning. Now, top story on the Standard newspaper, simply out of touch. That's the headline on the Standard newspaper, and there are pictures there of parliamentarians. Of course, it was a joint sitting between the National Assembly and the Senate, now which includes the members of Parliament and the senators. All right, and in this particular picture on the front page of the Standard newspaper, it seems like some of the MPs are doing this way, which symbolizes two. And of course, the head of state was actually standing right there, delivering speech, which insinuates in a way that, quote unquote, two-term, that, it's also quoted on the front page of the Standard newspaper. Now, the chance of two-term by MPs during President William Ruto's State of the Nation address confirmed the worrying reality that Kenyans are on their own. Now, it depicted a leadership address, depicted a leadership disconnected from the reality, just like the president's speech that cherry-picked as success and overlooked pressing issues. Now, chronic healthcare gaps went unaddressed. Education struggles were ignored. Meanwhile, Kenya faced rising living cost, economic pressures, and worsening insecurity. Ruto offered aspirational promises, but left the country's most urgent problems untouched, including healthcare. All right. Now that's on page 8 and 9 of the Standard newspaper. And one may wonder, how will you, it's sort of campaigning in Parliament buildings, because what is seen in this particular picture, and of course what was seen yesterday, depicted of, the members of Parliament, chance of two-term. And one may wonder, what's their work? The campaigns on, and should the campaigns, be conducted in the National Assembly or the Parliament buildings? All right. Food for thoughts. Of course, you will remember during the Finance Bill of 2024, some MPs, the majority of MPs passed the bill, the Finance Bill of 2024, before it was rejected by the President. And after it was rejected by the President, the same MPs who voted for that particular bill commended the President for not signing that particular bill. All right. Now today, rather yesterday, members of Parliament and some members of the Senate were chanting two-term in Parliament buildings. All right. Food for thought. Now let's take a look on some of what the head of state had to say in regards to the state of the nation and matters to do with the roads projects. He said that 28,000 kilometers, announced dueling of major highways including the Rironi, Naivasha, Nakuru, Mau Summit Road, plus plans to tarmac 28,000 kilometers of roads and dual 2,500 kilometers more. Now, in matters energy, he aims to, to add 10,000 megawatts of power through geothermal, solar, wind, hydro, and nuclear sources. In matters education, increased education budget from 490 billion Kenya shillings to over 700 billion, promising better infrastructure and staffing. Matters economy and the economic plan, he unveiled a sweeping economic plan centered on infrastructure expansion, agriculture, self-sufficiency, and turning Kenya into the next exporter. All right. Now, matters infrastructure, he pledged no new taxes or borrowing to fund a 5 trillion infrastructure plan. Also, matters capital, he announced creation of National Infrastructure Fund and Sovereign Wealth Fund to attract private capital. And Kisumu SGR, he confirmed that SGR extension to Kisumu and Malaba starting January of 2026, that is next year, just a month to that. And privatization proceeds will be refinanced for investment, citing global models like Temasek and Mubadala. Now, PPP model of Mau Summit road faces public criticism over hidden liabilities and lack of transparency. Those are some of the, what the head of state touched upon during his the third state of the nation address yesterday at Parliament buildings. Now, the head of state says we need to raise 5 trillion in order, to put his vision to reality. And then again, he says no taxes or borrowing to fund will be done to fund the 5 trillion infrastructure plan. Now, Treasury CS, that is John Badi, recently, made remarks saying that the government may not be able, to continue funding, or rather to issue capitation funds to schools. And he said that there is a cash crunch crisis in that particular sector. And now the government is saying that no more taxes, no more borrowing, but we need to get to this 500 or rather 5 trillion Kenya shillings. And one may wonder how. All right. Now, on page 2 of the Standard newspaper, Equity Bank takes over troubled packaging firm amid 193 million debt. And that's a story on page 2. Matters corridors of justice. And also on page 2, CCTV reveals rider's last errand before tragic death. Of course, you've seen this particular story which has been making headlines. New details have emerged that regarding the murder of a delivery man, Anthony Olwal, who was killed on Tuesday. That was in South B Estate in Nairobi. Now, CCTV footage seen by the Standard reveals the last moments of Olwal, who was allegedly killed by the persons to whom he was delivering a new phone. All right. Now, Olwal had been an errand to deliver a mobile phone to a client at Meridian Courts in the mid-morning, unaware it would be his last. His body was later discovered on the 4th floor under unclear circumstances under a bed past midday. Now, footage shows Olwal arriving at the building entrance at around 11:50 a.m. That was in the morning, being directed to the house where he was to make the delivery. Now, while waiting, he appeared to be in communication with the clients. Now, at 12:02 p.m., one suspect was seen leaving a brown bag with his head covered, followed closely by a second suspect seemingly checking if anyone was watching. Before exiting with the luggage, the suspects were briefly confronted by a staff member. One suspect handed over the bag and left, after which the supervisor discovered Olwal's body on the 4th floor. Now, witnesses said the suspect had booked the studio unit for a short stay, but had not paid, leaving the bag containing the high-end mobile phone being before fleeing. Now, Olwal, that was a border rider, had received an order to deliver an iPhone Pro Max smartphone in South B, and according to WhatsApp communication, a man claiming to be in Eldoret directed him to deliver the phone to his brother, or the quote-unquote brother, in South B. Postmortem results indicated blunt force trauma to the head. Olwal's hand and legs were bound with rope, and a lasso tightly covered his mouth. At the scene, police recovered a knife, a metal object, and a mobile phone. And the Madaraka Sub-County Commander Judith Nyongesa confirmed that the two men had booked the studio and ordered the 220,000 Kenya shillings phone. All right, that's quite an unfortunate story right there. Of course, we hope that justice will be served, you know, to the bereaved family, and of course to the slain border rider. Of course, one may wonder how ruthless people have been these days. We've seen, you know, cases of on and on cases of, you know, murder. It's quite unfortunate, you know, human beings turning to their other human beings. Quite unfortunate story right there. Moving on, Wajir official found in Somalia after missing for months. Now, the Huduma Center manager and Assistant County Commissioner Hussein Abdirahman Mohammed, who went missing for 4 months, has been safely found. Mohammed was last seen on June 8th in Wajir and was later found in Dobli, Somalia, reportedly handed over by alleged Al-Shabaab militants to Ajuran elders. Now, his disappearance occurred shortly after attending an official event in the county attended by Public Service Cabinet Secretary, that is Geoffrey Ruku. Now, the family said the photos of Mohammed showed him weak, sickly, and visibly traumatized, but he was in the care of Somali authorities. Coordination is ongoing between Kenya and Somali authorities to facilitate his return back home. And of course, that's, you know, that one brings closure to the family of the Huduma Center manager. Now, on page 4 all the way to around page 10 is matters to do with the State of the Nation address that was made by the head of state. That was yesterday in Parliament's buildings. All right. Now you're up to speed. Those making headlines from across our 47 counties, and of course in the world of sports as far as the governance of this country is concerned. Of course, now it is exactly 54 minutes past the top of the hour. We're due for another short breather here on the program. When you come back, we're going to have a conversation. You don't want to miss that particular conversation that's coming to you up next after this commercial short break. Don't go too far.